Well, good afternoon, scholarly gamers, and welcome to PC Building Fundamentals. I guess I better start with a bit of an apology. I had all intentions of starting this series quite a while ago, and it's been delayed over and over and over. And so I'd like to kind of give you the explanation of why that is. When I first envisioned this series, I had this plan, right? And in my mind, I've got a new build that I want to undertake, a new project, so to speak. I want to build a brand new computer, basically, like a showcase type of system. One of the main key features, of course, was going to be a custom water cooling loop featuring hard lines and a huge case. Well, I say huge, but the case is one of the most expensive items of the build. And that was the plan, to coincide the series with the building of that. And then, a couple of factors came into play. One, of course, is money, right? It's a huge undertaking. It's going to be quite an expensive system. And the way that I'm going to have to do it is buying a piece at a time and slowly. So two of the most expensive items I'm actually going to be buying probably in September. And actually I'm going to use those with my current system whilst I then, build the other one. But I've decided to just separate these two things completely. The build itself, yes, will feature on the website, www.scholarlygamers.com. The project name is yet undetermined. I've got a couple of ideas. But I'll do a build log of that. And so my goal with the written features is that's going to be a lot more on the technical side of things, a lot more, into the details, because the devil is in the details. Whereas for this video series, I really want to try to just talk about fundamentals, right? The basics. If you're an experienced PC builder and you've been, maybe you're like myself, you've been building PCs for decades, then, this series probably isn't for you. Whereas if you're someone who just would love to build their own PC, but you don't know where to begin, then hopefully this series is going to be of benefit to you. As far as the order of it, I'm still a bit undecided, if I'm completely honest. I want to get into some, the nitty-gritty parts as far as like individual components, the difference in where your money goes. Because, for example, not all motherboards are created equal. But then likewise, you don't necessarily need to buy a top-end motherboard if you don't need access to its, top-of-the-line features, its super high rated voltage regulation, aspects, the MOSFETs, all these types of things. For a lot of folk out there, you can get away with budget items. Now, another difficulty of this series is that it won't necessarily age well if I'm too specific about the components. If I say, insert this video card here, and you watch this 6 months down the road, there's every chance that video card will be obsolete. So instead we'll focus on technologies. For example, with video cards, AMD versus NVIDIA. Yes, we know that NVIDIA is the top dog currently when it comes to performance, but there's a lot of other aspects of choosing a video card beside just raw performance. For example, G-Sync, which is the feature that's on NVIDIA cards and on select monitors, versus FreeSync, which is on AMD cards. If you look at the prices of monitors between G-Sync and FreeSync, it's huge. Yes, an NVIDIA card will give you more performance, but if you have a FreeSync monitor, then an AMD card might make more sense for you. And then also when you think about resolutions, what's your goal? If you're wanting to build a gaming PC, what resolution do you want to game at? Because ultimately that will dictate what components you use. And of course there's budget as well. It's all fine and dandy saying I want to build the best gaming rig in the world. Oh, but my budget's only $1,000. But then likewise, if you want to build a rig that's specifically for gaming, you don't necessarily need the same type of hardware that, for example, with my upcoming build, which, yes, is going to be a gaming machine, but I also want it for raw power, for video editing, for other, software. I'm at school at the moment dealing with cybersecurity and networking. So I run a lot of virtual machines, I do a lot of coding and whatnot, so I need that horsepower, whereas you may not. So hopefully the series will kind of put these things into context for you, and we'll do our best to to try to, look at things objectively. I mean, of course, I'll end up infusing some opinion here and there, but I don't want to cloud your own judgment. But we'll try our best as the series progresses to be cognizant of money, because, as I said before, there's a reason that some components are more expensive than others. And if you've been paying attention to hardware prices in the last couple of years, they've been crazy. The inflation of video cards, memory, even power supplies and hard drives, they've been well over what their MSRP, their retail price is. Thankfully, those prices are starting to come down. But then it also brings another debate. The next generation of video cards is on the horizon. So should you just wait it out and pay top dollar for those? Or could you get away with purchasing the current, or what would then be the older generation, for a cheaper price? This is the difficult thing when it comes to building a PC. It's all about compromise. If you spend the most amount of money, like if you buy the best of everything, it's going to last you for a very good while, this is true. But I can almost guarantee you'll get hit by buyer's remorse when that new CPU, that new type of memory, that new video card is released. You'll immediately regret, oh man, if only I had waited. So when it comes to building a PC, you have to have a plan, but then you also have to be able to compromise. You have to say to yourself, okay, I'm willing to take a chance on this, or I'm willing to settle for this level of performance. And then of course there's budget. I mean, my last build, at the time, 6th gen Intels were, they were out. And I had an old AMD system, and oh god, what's the name of it? What was it? A 750K Black Edition? Just a little, they call it a quad core, but it's really a dual core with SMT, right? The AMD equivalent of hyperthreading. And this chip was great. It was cheap, really, really cheap, but it overclocked crazily as long as you had the cooling. And it was perfect. So I got that, teamed that up with, and at the time, an AMD card, a Radeon R280, overclocked that, and it was a great little gaming machine. Didn't cost me that much, and I could play everything I wanted at the time, so World of Warcraft and first-person shooters and whatnot worked out really well. But then my priorities changed. At the time, and this is several years ago, I got into streaming, and so I needed to ditch that. I needed more horsepower. So at that time, that's when the 6th gen Intels were around, and I was like, man, it's going to cost me a lot. I need to buy new everything, even the power supply. I wanted to, get a bigger and better one, and I just couldn't justify that cost. So I went with an older i7, a 4th gen. Now the performance of that, the Devil's Canyon CPU, is fantastic. They overclock exceedingly well as also, and what it allowed me to do was to use the DDR3 memory I already had and put it into that system. So, when it comes to upgrades, you can save a bit of money here and there by using your old components, especially if you have newer ones. But when it comes to building a brand new PC from scratch, is a very expensive affair. And that's why I would always, urge people, yes, it's nice to just say, like, I've got $2,000, let's go build it. That's great if you can do that, but if you can buy things slowly over time and be very selective about what you buy and when, for example, leaving a video card till possibly the last minute, unless you see some crazy sale, then yeah, take advantage of that. You can basically play the market and get the most amount of bang for your buck. So yeah, we're hopefully going to try to do that in this series, as well as go into some of the technical aspects and best practices. Actually look at a selection of components, and why maybe you could be you would choose to go with one over the other, but also the technical differences between them. Oh, excuse me, that's a problem with shooting these things. So, with that said, I don't have a huge library of all of these different components. So throughout the series, where possible, I'm going to use PC Building Simulator. Now that's a game that I reviewed for Scholarly Gamers. You can check the review out. I'm sure I'll put a link in it to it somewhere. Great game, especially if you know nothing about building a computer, because it can give you some of the basics. So I'll try to use that where I can to try to illustrate a point, or go into some details. Even so it's not necessarily the same as the real world. It can give you a little look at the difference in pricing. And also, PC Building Simulator has some great tools within it. They're still updating it, so it doesn't have everything yet. But that game is going to have the ability to do custom water cooling, so that could be quite handy for later down the road. And then obviously, once I finally put my new PC together, we'll take a look at that as well. And maybe towards the end of the series, we'll actually go into water cooling for beginners. And I don't mean just buying a pre-built unit. I'm talking about actually selecting individual components and building your own custom loop. So I wanted to do this first, a little kind of prologue, so we both know what to expect from this series. So you can know right off the bat, right, this is something I want to watch, and you'll be keeping an eye out for it. Now obviously the content, we rotate. So this week, for example, is PC Building Fundamentals. Next week should be a episode of, why is my brain going away? Armchair Gaming, of course, the fabulous philosophy, told through games. A fantastic series from the Unbearable Gamer, so make sure to check that out. And then the next week, Proof of Console from Captain McMuffin, another fantastic series. And then, PC Building Fundamentals. So we go in that kind of a 3-week program, so to speak, or schedule. So the first episode, I believe, what we're going to do is use case scenario, right? What are you building your PC for? Because that is going to dictate so much. If you want it just for gaming, we can actually do that for relatively inexpensively. But if you want to have a brutal system that is capable of 4K gaming, that's a completely different ballpark. So we'll talk about, those types of differences, as well as, if you want a machine that's for gaming and streaming, that changes everything as well, because that's going to be more expensive also. You're going to need a beefier processor, more memory. Or likewise, if you just need something for video editing, you can get away with, inexpensive hardware, unless we're talking about you want to render 4K videos. On my current PC, I can render, an hour-long 1080p 60 frames per second video in, an hour or two. If it's an hour-long video, it kind of varies. 1080p 30, probably a flat hour easily. But if it's 60 frames, then it's going to be a bit longer. If I was to do 4K, I'd have to set it running the night before, and hopefully by the morning it would be done. So, there's all these aspects when it comes to building a PC, as well as just the actual physicality of, okay, how do you do this? What do you need to be mindful of? How do we plan our purchases? So first episode is going to be all about use case scenario, and that's going to help dictate where you want to go. So then likewise in the subsequent episodes, if we're talking about a certain piece of hardware, then depending which direction you've chosen, we'll try to discuss the different options at that stage, and then also possibly discuss the option that I have chosen for this new build. Well, hey, thanks for watching. I hope you're going to enjoy the series. I know that I'm going to enjoy it because this is my bread and butter. I love building PCs. If I had just a ridiculous amount of disposable income, I would be building PCs all the time, just to make like showpieces. I would love to do that. That would be awesome. But as it stands, my schooling at the moment is all about computers. I just recently graduated from college, so I've got my little baby certificate, a higher national diploma in computing technical support, and now I'm transitioning to cybersecurity and networks to actually pursue my honors degree in that. So when it comes to the tech stuff, not only do I have practical real-world experience, I've also got the certificates and the education to back that up, and obviously I'm trying to pursue even more. So yeah, hopefully this will be a good series for you. And I know I'm going to have a lot of fun making it. So anyway, look, that's what it's going to be about. I'll catch you next time for the first episode of PC Building Fundamentals. Thanks for watching.